Hello everybody, welcome back to another 92 plates video. It's a very odd one today. I am not in my kitchen, as you can probably tell. I'm in my office today because I wanted to bring you a video that's actually been highly requested on my Instagram page around my top tips of pizza dough and what I have learned through the journey. So let's get to it, let's roll the tape. One thing I do want to point out is I am not an expert in the slightest. I am not a pizza champion. I am not anything like that. This is just my journey and what I have learned over the time from when I started making pizza to now. Obviously now, because it can't be into the future. So to now, here's my 5 top tips of making dough. Tip number 1. And we're going to go right back to the start of actually making your pizza when you're getting your ingredients, and it is make sure that your yeast is alive. When you take your yeast and you put it into that lukewarm water, as you're whisking that up, if your yeast is staying on the top and is not actually diluting into the water, that means your yeast is dead. If your yeast is dead, it's pointless. It's not going to do anything for your pizza. It's not going to create that fermentation process, which means that your dough isn't going to build its gluten network. So if your yeast is dead, throw it. Start again, get new yeast, make sure that it's beautiful liquid brown. That sounds a bit odd, liquid brown, but it is actually a nice color when you look at it. And obviously make sure that your yeast is alive. Tip number 2 is don't over knead your dough. I have done this plenty of times where I've over kneaded it, and what that does is that makes your dough very strong. So when you come to actually stretch your dough out, it's a little tougher to do so, and your pizza pretty much becomes a little bit dense. It's not soft, light and fluffy like you want it to be. This is very easy to do in a stand mixer because your stand mixer is doing all the work, and it's very tempting, I know, to put your stand mixer on full power and say smash that dough out, but don't do that. Put it onto the lowest setting. So let your stand mixer do most of the work, but put it on the lowest speed so that it can slowly knead that dough and start that gluten network going. The same goes for obviously if you're kneading by hand, don't over knead it. Stretch that dough out, start that gluten network going, but once you get to a good point, then obviously stop. Tip number 3 is to give it time. It's very tempting to keep looking at your dough, to keep checking it, to poke it, to prod it. It looks very airy, it looks very spongy, and it makes funny noises when I punch the air out. But don't, please just don't do that. Give it time to actually ferment, to do what it's meant to build that gluten network. When the time is right, you can punch the air out, but don't do it any sooner, and allow that dough just to actually do what it's meant to do. The fermentation process is going to give it its flavor. The yeast is eating all of those sugar. It's creating the gluten network, so it's going to give it flavor, and it's going to create that nice fluffy dough. Tip number 4, bring everything up to temperature. This doesn't just mean about the dough. This also means about your ingredients you are going to top your pizza with as well. What you're going to want to do is bring everything out about an hour before you actually want to cook. Obviously your oven's heating if you've got a pizza stone in there, or if your pizza oven is heating up. During that time you want to bring everything out so that it comes up to room temperature. And the reason you want to do this is because at room temperature, that means when you put it in the oven, in the pizza oven or your traditional home oven, then that is going to cook evenly. If you have a pizza and you put cold sauce and cold mozzarella and cold meats on it, then the middle of the pizza is going to be really cold, whilst the outside is going to be warm, and the outside is going to cook quicker than the middle, which you don't want to happen. You obviously want everything to cook evenly, so bring it all out, bring it up to room temperature, and then cook your pizza. Perfect. And tip number 5, my last tip, and this is probably one of the most important tips to getting a perfect crust. I say perfect, I still haven't really perfected it, but a good crust. Don't punch too much air out. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to get your dough ball and push all of the air out. Don't do that. Push the middle out, obviously. We want to push some of the air out. We need that kind of thinner base and we want the puffy crust. Stretch your dough out, but try and not handle the crust too much. The crust is going to contain the air, which makes air pockets whilst you cook, which then will obviously the gas will escape and make your dough nice and fluffy. Try not to push that air out. Push the middle out, but leave the crust alone. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned some tips from me. Like I said, I am not a pizza expert. I am not an expert in making dough, but this is just what I have learned from my journey in making dough to the point that I have made dough. I've said dough quite a lot. But anyway, if you did like this video, please subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, perfect. Don't forget to give me that thumbs up on this video and hit that bell icon so you get notified when I drop videos like this. But there is one more thing that I would like to say, and obviously you don't have to do this, so skip this if you don't want to hear it. But I have started a Patreon page to try and help support this page grow and also help fund some of the expensive stuff that the world is providing me right now. So if you do have a spare bit of change in your pocket, please pop over to the Patreon page to support me. And if you do, thank you so much. It's massively appreciated. But don't worry if you don't, I'm still going to be bringing you loads of content on here. So yeah, happy cooking.